Welcome back to the IU427 garage, everybody. It's another beautiful day in the shop. We've got plenty of stuff to work on. You're going to see that work on the office is continuing. We've got the drywall up on the ceiling and all of the drywall mud and tape done. But look for those updates over on the Mrs. IU427 channel. Here in this shop, I think are going to be working on the interior of the car today. I worked really hard over the last week on the door gaps. And I don't know what it is about this particular body. And I'm not talking about the Mk4s in general. I'm talking about this car, this body. The amount of movement that we've seen in the fiberglass on this one is just unbelievable. I waited quite some time before we put the windshield in. I think I waited a full 4 weeks, which is unusual. Usually I have the windshield installed a couple of weeks after. But after seeing all the movement that we're seeing in the doors and the door gaps, I was really uncomfortable putting the windshield in because I wanted to make sure that the majority of the fiberglass had or was going to be settled in place by the time the windshield went in and before we re-gapped the doors. Now, a lot of the gaps on the doors will have to do with the color that you choose. So a darker color is going to expand more than a lighter color, expand and contract more, especially when it's out in the sun. So the door gaps are always going to be just a little bit bigger. And this is just for a fiberglass body. You know, a steel body car isn't going to see the same amount of swings in the amount that the doors grow and then shrink. So when you're doing your body work on the car, make sure, if you're doing it yourself, that you gap accordingly and that you're not going to make the gaps so small that when you layer up all of your body filler, your primers, and your paint, by the time this thing gets out in the sun, that you're going to have a problem with these gaps shrinking down to the point where the panels are rubbing together. So right here you can see this door is closed and we've got a pretty good sized gap back here. This door didn't move quite as much as the other side. Now I will say that I'm probably going to take the door spacer off because it has moved enough that I think we can remove this door spacer and actually get this door to close a little bit more and take up some of the inconsistency we're seeing here and that we're seeing here down here. So I've got the door is sticking out just a little bit farther than I'd like it to be, and so I think by removing the door shim, that'll take some of that away. Over on this side, it was kind of a different story. We saw tremendous movement on the door on this side. Jeff had given us pretty generous gaps to work with, but while the gap in the beginning kind of maintained on this side, this end of the door was like super tight. And I think I even commented about that in one of the previous videos, to the point where I had just left the door open to about there, just so that if the body moved any more, that we weren't going to have any rubbing of the paint on paint surface and have issues. So over on this side, I wanted to wait until we were, you know, a couple of weeks in past having the body mounted before I addressed any of the door gaps again. And so I worked on those this past week, And I've got the door in a pretty good spot now. I've got a pretty good gap there, all the way around and over on this side. So it worked out okay. And you can see we've got just a perfect transition here. Jeff just does such a great job getting this transition here to come out near perfect every time. And so I think in one of the videos, probably near the end of this car, I'll kind of show you some easy ways to do some fine adjustments on your doors once you get to this stage of your build. And if you have any issues later on, easy ways to bring them back into adjustment without completely screwing up the door latch mechanism and how it closes, and having the door so far out of adjustment that you have to start over from scratch. So what I'm going to work on the prototype this week is I'm going to work on getting all of the interior stuff kind of complete, or as complete as I can get it right now. There'll probably be a couple of fine points that still need to be taken care of, later on. But I want to get the majority of the interior done. So, for instance, I want to get the rear view mirror put in place. I want to get that on the dash and get it screwed into place. I want to get the grab bar tightened up. I want to get our under dash panel on the passenger side put in. Over on the driver's side, since we had the fuse box down to get the windshield in, I want to get that put back in place and screwed in for the final time. I want to get the ends of the dash kind of secured in place, because with these flaps that they give you on the plastic dash, you can actually use a couple of trim screws through the plastic dash to hold those tails in place and kind of give that area a little bit more of a finished look. The ignition switch needs to go in, and then we've got a little bit of wiring for the Russ Thompson turn signal switch that needs to be completed, and we need to get the under dash panel in on the driver's side. As far as the seats go, the seats are still loose. We had them mounted when we did the Breeze seat mounts, but since we've had them basically unbolted so that we can get the seats in and out of the car relatively easy, so that we could get our transmission tunnel cover in, we've still got to get our shifter boot done, which I've got here. We're going to do the check straps for the doors, and I think we may even do the panels, the door panels with the pockets in them. And don't forget, we still got our acorn nuts that we want to swap out on the door hinges. So quite a few things that we can take care of on the prototype this week, and I think I'm just going to dive in and start doing some of this stuff. All right, a little music update, everybody. Bad Company, Shooting Star. Last night, before I went in, I got a couple of things taken care of on the Mk4 prototype. Those things were the door panels. So I've got the door panels in, so the door pockets are on. Let me go over here and get some more light. Ugh. All right, so door pockets are on. Now, these are from Herb. So these are Herb's door panels, and these go on with the industrial Velcro. Now, it's very important when you put these on, especially if your car has just been painted, that you get all of the rubbing compound or the polishing compound off of the surface before you try to put those strips of Velcro with the self-adhesive backing onto the doors. Because if you don't, what's going to happen is after 1 or 2 months of driving the car, especially in the heat, the door panels will just fall off. The adhesive will let go and they'll just fall off. So make sure you take some rubbing alcohol. I've got it in a handy little spray bottle right here. And make sure you wipe the surface down with the alcohol and a paper towel, and then go ahead and position and put those in place, and then they'll last forever. Mine have been on my car for 12 years now. They've never come off. But the Velcro allows you to bring them, basically take them off, and if for some reason you need to clean them or whatever, they're really easy to remove. So we got those done. We also got the check straps taken care of. So the check straps are in. And then I got the acorn nuts on for the door hinges. Now, I went ahead and I left the steel washers that Jeff had put on when he adjusted the doors with the whiz nuts that were on there before. But you can see, I went ahead and I covered those up with a stainless steel washer so everything looks nicer. So there's the standard steel washer behind, the stainless steel washer in front, the pretty part, and then the stainless steel acorn nuts, and that just makes everything look really nice. Now, what I've been working on tonight is getting the shifter boot all squared away. Now, you can buy one of these from our buddy Mike Everson. He sells one specifically for this car, but I had one in stock that is it low car? I think it's low car. Yeah. So it's this one right here, low car 70BHRB, billet shifter boot ring with boot. And so I've got that installed. Now what I do, and I do this even when I get them from Mike, is I glue the leather or the vinyl shift boot to the rubber boot underneath. And I've told you about this in the past in other videos, so you can go back and see how I do it. But it just helps to seal out any of the moisture, the road debris, whatever, from getting up inside there. Now, the transmission tunnel is fairly well protected, but in my opinion, you've got it. It's provided with the Factory 5 kit anyways, so you might as well put the rubber shift boot in, and it gives you something to position the ring, the leather around. So you glue it to the rubber boot, and then you've got that all in place to go ahead and fasten the whole thing down. And I think it just works better that way. So that's in place. I think I'm going to work on the rest of tonight and may end the video with this. I want to get all of the carpet on the floor kind of cleaned out. I want to get the seats mounted for the final. And then I want to start getting our under dash panels put in. So that'll mean I'll have to get the grab handle over there tightened up. And then I'll have to take care of any of the wiring that we have over this side of the car taken care of so that we can get this side under dash panel in. One last thing, I went ahead and I mounted the wood steering wheel last night. So if you are using one of Russ's turn signal switches, just know you get provided different flathead screws with his kit, and so therefore you have to countersink the screws to match the head of the screws that Russ provides. So make sure you countersink these, otherwise your center cap will not fit properly. So we already did that, and it's ready to go. AC/DC, Girls Got Rhythm. All right, I think this is where I'm going to leave it for tonight. I'll be back out here tomorrow night. I've got the seats mounted. So the driver's seat is in. I've yet to hook up the seat heaters, but that's just a matter of plugging the cords in behind the seats. I've got the 5-point harnesses all pretty much squared away. We adjusted these before we put them in the car, so they should be good to go. What I did do is I took the foam that the steering wheel comes wrapped in, and I cut a slit down the back of it just so I could leave it over the top of the steering wheel. This just protects the steering wheel here in the later stages of the build. You know, if I'm going to have to, drive or steer the car, I'm going to have to take it off anyway. But this way, while I'm in here working on stuff, I'm not going to have a tendency to scratch it up. The passenger side is pretty much all done too. So seat harnesses are in. Again, I got to hook up the seat heaters behind the seats, but I vacuumed out the package tray before I did all that. So that's ready to go. I've kind of vacuumed the seats. Didn't get the front of the foot boxes yet, but I'll get those later. I just wanted to make sure that I got everything taken care of under the seats. So one thing you're going to want to make sure you do is you put these Allen head bolts in for the Breeze seat mounts. is make sure you put a little Loctite or thread locker on them, because the thread locker works also as an anti-seize, meaning if in the future you go to take these bolts out, you'll actually have an easier time getting them out with the thread locker on there than you would if you just left them in there and they started to corrode inside that riv nut, that's the captured nut that's inside the seat base. So this way you're kind of giving yourself a good way to get these out in the future. You can use anti-seize as well. I just found that the thread locker works a little bit better and you don't get it all over your hands. So I think what I'm going to do tomorrow night is I'm going to come back out here. I'm going to get the under dash panels squared away. I'm also going to take care of our grab bar and maybe even our ignition switch. So that stuff will all be taken care of tomorrow night. I got to take a break now. I got to get some of this video edited so that I can get it up this week, because I'm running a little bit behind. So I'll see you guys all tomorrow night. All right, we are tomorrowing, everybody. The interior is pretty much wrapped up on this one. We've got just a few things left. I'm sure I'm going to end up underneath the dash before we give this car back, just to, you know, make sure that there's no wires that are going to fall, you know, down into view. But other than that, I think the interior is pretty much wrapped up. We've got our under dash panels mounted. So over on this side, we've got the knob for our dimmer for the gauges. So that's a speed hut dimmer. And then we've got next to that, we've got our seat heater switch. So there's a low and a high setting on that. So it's within easy reach for the driver to reach up there, turn the switch on, and have his seats heated. We got our fuse box installed for the final time. So up until now, it's been held in place with a few Clecos. Now it's put in with the black trim screws. And this is one of those things that I suggest you guys do not pop rivet in, because there might be a time on a trip where, you know, you need to get into the back of that fuse box, and it's sure going to be a lot easier if you can just pull it down with some screws rather than having to drill out a pop rivet or two. So the trim screws work perfectly on this. That's the exact same way we mount our under dash panels. They just go in with some of those black trim screws. So up in here, we've got our headlight switch and our hazard light switch. We found that it just makes a better spot for those there. Kind of cleans up some of the clutter on the dash so you don't have so many switches and knobs and what have you on the dash. And next to that is our OBD2 port and our multifunction indicator light or engine light. You're not going to have to get to those all the time, so why put them down here on this 2-inch tube like is suggested in the assembly manual when you can get them up here out of the way, and they're still accessible. You open the door, you plug in your scanner, and you're pretty much good to go. The shifter boot is all finished up, and now this is one of our shifters, and we have completely redesigned our shifter in the sense that now, instead of a welded piece, it is all one piece. It's all machined one piece, and we've changed the thread size on it to accept the Factory 5 knob. Before, Factory 5 supplied these with just a plain black plastic knob, and it was an odd thread size. It's a, what is it? I think it's a 3/8 by 24, something like that. And most of the aftermarket is 3/8 16 for the threads. Now you can find adapters and what have you to make it work on the Factory 5 shifter handle, but since these are just designed for, you know, the Tremec transmissions and just for the Factory 5 shift knob, we figure we might as well change our thread type to fit the Factory 5 knob, and it fits perfectly. Now, the biggest advantage of our shifter over the Factory 5 supplied shifters, ours comes up first and then cants forward. So we don't see any of the bind that you will see with the Factory 5 shifter in that rubber boot. Now, if you're just doing the leather boot and not using the rubber underneath, you probably won't have the problem that these cars seem to have of it wanting to pull itself out of fifth gear. Because there's no bind in that rubber. However, with ours, we still run the rubber boot underneath the leather boot, and because ours comes straight up first and then forward, we don't have the problem with it popping out of 5th gear. And you can see the Factory 5 shift knob is actually pretty nice. It's got the 5-speed diagram on it. It's 2-piece, so it's a chrome bottom piece and then the black plastic top piece. So it really gives that period look, but we wanted it to work with our shifter, and so we've done that now. So if you guys are interested in these, just send us an email and we'll see if we can hook you up with them. The ignition switch is in right here. So that took a little fiddling with because, you know, these are kind of like punched out for all the hull openings. And for some reason, when they punch out the hull for the ignition switch, it's a little tight. If any of you have had to deal with the wiper switch in one of the Factory 5 pre-punched holes, you'll know what I'm talking about. They don't fit. So you have to do a little bit of massaging to get those things to fit. So I've got the dash pretty much tidied up. The last thing I have to do is tie in the antenna for the GPS speedometer, but I think that's for another day. Let me take you over to the other side and I'll show you what the under dash panel looks like over there. All right, so over on this side, we've got the grab handle all installed, and you could tap dance on this thing. This thing is so secure because remember, we made our own framework that goes behind the dash. Now it was really tricky getting this under dash panel in because we had 2 outlets that were going in there too, one USB and one 12-volt outlet, and trying to maneuver everything in and around all the framework that we put in for this grab handle was a feat. And the door doesn't open up 90 degrees. It opens up to about, maybe 60 degrees. Still allows you access into the glove box, but you can see there's not a whole lot of real estate here to get the grab bar in. Our only other alternative would have been to put the grab bar lower than the dash, and I think it would have just been an issue with the passenger hitting their knees on it, and I wasn't comfortable with that, so we chose to put it right here. So that's in. The under dash panel is in, and then you can see we've got our USB and our 12-volt outlets mounted, so those are all ready to go. We did make these so they're upside down, but they do swing away so that you can go ahead and you can get your stuff plugged in. Having this thing, you know, keep falling into your way. So this way they kind of drop down and push out of the way, and you can get in there and you can do your thing. Over next to that, of course, is our seat heater switch, and again, we've got a high and a low setting on that. Last thing that I have to show you over here is the tails on the dash. What we ended up doing is we ended up cutting off the bottom corner of them so they would just miss our alignment bolt for our door, and then we put a single black trim screw in through the hole that's already there provided by Factory 5 into that black plastic, and that just kind of holds everything in place and makes it look pretty. So I think that's going to do it for this one. As always, go over to the Mrs. IE427 channel. We're still putting updates over there for updates regarding the shop, the building out of the office, the finishing up of the shop over here. So all those videos are over on that channel. All the car stuff and the car related stuff is on this channel. If you're enjoying the content here, we sure would appreciate it if you would do the like, the share, the subscribe, all that kind of stuff. We'll see you next time. Have a great day.